One of the really neat aspects of the Almanac of Canadian Figure Skating is the fact that it includes detailed results of the Canadian Championships going back to the very beginning. I wanted to share something that I thought you might find really interesting. This is a clipping about the event now recognized as the first Canadian Championships, held March 13th, 1905, at the Minto Skating Club's Rideau Rink in Ottawa. And it is from the March 15th, 1905 issue of the Ottawa Citizen. The Minto Skating Club held the first annual figure skating competition for the Minto Challenge Cups and other prizes Monday in the Rideau Rink before a large number of spectators. His Excellency the Governor-General, accompanied by Lady Evelyn Gray, Colonel and Mrs. Hanbury Williams, Captain Trotter, ADC, Captain Newton, ADC, and Major Parks, arrived at 9 o'clock. The ice was in splendid condition, a band stationed in the music gallery played at intervals, and the whole affair was capitally managed by the committee. Refreshments were served in the tea room upstairs at 10 o'clock, the idea being that the vice-regal party, the judges, and the competitors should be invited up. But the general public took it for granted that they were also expected and flocked upstairs in large numbers, thus putting the club to much extra expense. One mistake the committee made was in failing to advertise the fact of the competition being open to all Canada, more generally, and it was no doubt due to this omission on their part that there were only 2 entries from outside cities, one being from Toronto and the other Montreal. Last night's competition certainly proved beyond doubt that the Minto Club is accomplishing one of its subjects, that of promoting an interest, in Ottawa at least, in scientific figure skating, single and combined, and the improvement in the skating of its members is marked, considering the short time the club has been in existence, and shows plainly the results of consistent practice and constant effort in the right direction. The individual figure skating, for which there were 3 prizes, a very handsome challenge cup presented by the Earl of Minto, a second cup contributed by the committee, and a special prize presented by Mr. A.G.A. Creighton, commenced punctually at 8 and continued until 10 o'clock. Mr. C. Linwood Pereira and 2 out-of-town men, Mr. Louis Rubenstein and Mr. Larmouth of Montreal, having been most wisely appointed as judges. The competition was conducted, generally, according to the regulations of the International Skating Union. From the very first, it was easy to pick the winners of the prizes. Miss Grace Ewan of Montreal, by her rhythmical movements, poise of body, and cleanly cut, precise figures, easily carried off the palm among the ladies. Mr. Ormond Haycock, the winner of the Challenge Cup, skated magnificently. His grace of carriage, lack of apparent effort, and grand, long, sweeping curves were remarkable, and called forth the remark from Mr. Rubenstein, himself a great skating celebrity, that he had quote-unquote never seen anything to equal it before. Miss Elsie Ritchie was best among the local lady competitors, and 2 promising ladies who showed much ability, having only begun this year, were Miss Beatrice Davidson and Miss Eleanor Kingsford. In the hand-in-hand, or double skating, for which there were 3 prizes, 2 cups from the Earl of Minto for the best lady and gentleman, a second prize presented by Mr. A.G.A. Creighton, also 2 cups, and a third prize given by the committee. Only 3 couples entered for these prizes. Consequently, every competitor received a prize. The skating of Mr. Ormond Haycock and his sister, Miss Catherine Haycock, was poetry of motion, combining unity, grace, and precision. At the conclusion of the doubles, the prizes for which were presented by Earl Grey. Mr. Rubenstein of Montreal, by special request of His Excellency, gave a short exhibition of grapevine, spinning, and other intricate figures. The vice-regal party then left the rink, and the special figures were skated, Miss Ewan again excelling all the others. The entries were as follows. Individual figure skating and special figures, Miss Ewan Montreal, Miss Grace Ritchie, Miss Elsie Ritchie, Miss Beatrice Davidson, Miss Eleanor Kingsford, Mr. Ormond Haycock, Mr. Fred Anderson, and Mr. George Howard of Toronto. Hand-in-hand figure skating, Mr. O and Miss Kay Haycock, Mr. James Smelly and Mrs. Smelly, Mr. Fred Anderson, and Miss Grace Ritchie. The prizes, which were placed on exhibition throughout the evening on a small table near the seats occupied by the vice-regal party, were as follows. First prize, Minto Challenge Cup, won by Mr. O. Haycock. Second prize, presented by the Committee of the Minto Club, Miss Grace Ewan, Montreal. Special prize, presented by Mr. A.G.A. Creighton, Miss Grace Ewan, Montreal. Hand-in-hand figure skating first prize, presented by the Earl of Minto, won by Mr. O. and Miss K. Haycock. Second prize, presented by Mr. A.G.A. Creighton, won by Mr. and Mrs. James Smelly. And third prize, presented by the Committee of the Minto Club, won by Fred Anderson and Miss Grace Ritchie. So a few really interesting takeaways from this article. The first being that it only took 2 hours for the competition to start and finish, which really strongly suggests that the skaters were all on the ice doing their figures at the same time. There were only 2 provinces and 3 cities that were represented, which shows how small the skating community was at the time. And there wasn't a separate women's event, but the top woman received 2 prizes and was later recognized as the first Canadian women's champion. Men and women competed against each other regularly for the Swedish Challenge Cup and the British title during the Edwardian era, and the Dominion of Canada was, as it still is today, a Commonwealth country, and it followed the same format as Great Britain's National Skating Association for its early competitions. There technically weren't separate men's and women's events at the Canadian Championships until 1914. But every year until then, there was always some sort of a prize for the top lady skater, as they called it at the time. So just 2 years after this competition, the rink where it was held was destroyed in a huge fire that may or may not have been caused by the range in the Minto Skating Club's tea room. And the fire necessitated the cancellation of the 1907 Canadian Championships, and sadly was the first of 2 blazes that the Minto Skating Club endured. If you found this interesting and you haven't picked up your copy of the Almanac of Canadian Figure Skating yet, you can find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble if you're down in the States. The book is available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle ebook edition. There's a 2 to 3 week industry delay with printing hardcovers, so if you're looking for a hardcover edition as a Christmas gift, I'd highly recommend getting your order in now. If you have Amazon Prime, the paperbacks ship out super quickly with that 2-day shipping we all know and love. And if you're a member of Kindle Unlimited, you can read the ebook for